it was that she had stopped in this particular instance giving so much attention to the fact that what she was doing wasn't working, right? Do you see? So it's kind of like it was the thought, right? Like the dominant idea that she was giving her attention to wasn't even the things that she was doing. It was that I'm doing these things and I'm not getting the result.
Are you ready to live your best life, make healthy choices, have success, have fun, and still have time for everything else? I'm here to teach you how to do that, and we'll all learn together from guests along the way as well. Follow along for some powerful tips on cultivating gratitude, making healthy choices for mind and body, and having fun doing it. What if all the angst and worry actually don't help? Oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do this differently.
OMG, hello friends. I am here with a guest today and I am really excited about it. So, have you ever felt like you're doing all the actions, you think you're doing exactly the right things towards your goal, but you're not seeing any result? You thought you'd be further along by now, you can't figure out what the deal is. Maybe that's just me. So we're going to talk today about why that can happen and what you can do about it. And if you caught last week's episode, we talked about the upper limit problem, where we subconsciously keep ourselves at a certain thermostat setting in various areas of our life, because that's what our self-image says we should do, achieve, look like, whatever. So this week, we're going to go a step deeper into this. And I'm just kind of going on anecdotal evidence here, but I think that lots of us struggle to understand why we're not achieving what we thought we would when we thought we would. So let's talk about that some more. My guest today is Karen Mullins. Hello, Karen.
Hey.
Karen is my success coach and friend, and I've known her for almost 4 years. I think I have that right. For most of that time, we hadn't even met in person. Hello, internet. But we rectified that last summer, and that was a thrill as well. So I want to give you a proper introduction. Karen is a mindset and transformation coach who helps her clients achieve quantum leap goals by getting to the root cause of results, the program beliefs and self-image in our conscious mind. She's a certified Proctor Gallagher coach and has been recognized as one of Bob Proctor's top 1% of coaches worldwide, which means a silver pin in that organization. And you'll hear this when she speaks, but Karen lives in Manchester, England, with her husband and 2 teenagers. So welcome.
Oh my goodness. It's such a pleasure to be here, Cheryl. I'm so excited about this. So thank you for having me. And I'm excited for what we're going to be speaking about today.
I am too. And I was joking before we started that I think everyone's going to love Karen's British accent and Karen's friends will love my American accent. So we're even on that.
The perfect combination for sure.
Okay, so my listeners have heard me talk about the power of thoughts and feelings, and I know this is right up your alley. So can you walk us through what is maybe happening when we're doing all the things and we get frustrated about our lack of results?
Yeah. And, this is probably something that I think I see all the time in clients and people that come to work with me. In fact, it's probably one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people will come and want to work with me in the first instance, right? It literally will be exactly what you just said, Cheryl. I'm doing all the things, right? Like I'm doing my income producing activities or, the things that I see other people that are successful in my industry doing. I'm doing it. I've been doing it. And yet, nothing's really moving the needle, kind of what gives here, right? And, you will know, and by the sounds of it, you've already spoken about this in more detail on recent episodes too, but it's not so much what we are doing that is causing the results that's showing up for us, but more the thoughts and the ideas that we are giving our dominant attention to. And I think that's kind of the key part to take away from this is like that word dominant. Like, what are we giving our dominant attention to? Okay. And one of the ideas that really helped this land for me is we don't so much get what we want, we get how we feel about what we want, right? So again, this can be where somebody is, wanting a particular result, right? So again, there's no question in terms of like the outcome that they want, but how they feel about the outcome is, oh, it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be hard. I don't know enough. I don't know the right people. I'm doing these things, but like, I'm not as good as this person. So like, these are kind of like the dominant feelings or what they're giving their attention to in the background. Yeah.
And this came up in a discussion that we had recently, and it's really been on my mind, I would say, for the past month or so, because I was pointing out to you that there's some things in my business, in my life that I've been wanting to happen a long time that haven't happened. But also there were some things that I just kind of decided on and they happened within a few weeks. And what in the world was the difference? It was a small thing. It was something at work in my day job. And you told me what you thought the difference was. So do you know what I'm leading you on to say?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And this is this idea, right, of resistance. Okay. Like we are putting resistance in the path of whatever it is that we want to come to us. This came up. Yeah, you're absolutely right. This was a client actually in our community where it's exactly the kind of the example that we're talking about, where she had been really, again, doing all the things, right? Like doing all of the things really to the point where actually sometimes you can get almost burnt out with it, right? Like kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm doing so much and yet I'm just not seeing the results that I want. And what kind of then showed up in this particular example was no sooner did in this instance the person decide, right, you know what, I'm just gonna take a break from this. I'm just gonna take a break from this. I'm gonna rest. I'm gonna focus on what it is that I want to do. And it was kind of, and lo and behold, as soon as I did that, as soon as I took a step back, stopped doing all the things, I started to get the very results that I'd been trying so hard to get in the first place. And again, it's that like, what is going on here? Why is that happening? Is it just then that actually I need to do less? Is that the key? And whilst that may be a part of it, right? Like sometimes that may be a part of it, but that's not so much the bit that we want to focus on here. What was really going on was it wasn't so much that in this example, this particular person had all of a sudden stopped doing the things that in theory would have been giving her the results. It was that she had stopped in this particular instance giving so much attention to the fact that what she was doing wasn't working, right? Do you see? So it's kind of like it was the thought, right? Like the dominant idea that she was giving her attention to wasn't even the things that she was doing. It was that I'm doing these things and I'm not getting the result. I'm doing these things and it's not working. Do you see? Yeah. And so that's the thing. And so then, of course, what happens when you take a step back, you also take a step back from that particular thought. Like you also take a step back from the idea that what I'm doing isn't working. And so when you drop the thought of what I'm doing isn't working, now you allow the things that you want to come to you because you're no longer putting like a kink in the hose, so to speak, right? And this comes, if I can take it back another step, I guess, Cheryl, and just expand on it a little bit further, if it comes from the kind of almost like general or basic premise, right? And I work very much with universal laws, okay? And one of the ideas that I'm forever saying to my clients and reminding myself of course, right? Because I'm not perfect either, is that everything we want is here for us. That actually everything we want is trying, right, to like get to us, so to speak. What we are seeking is also seeking us. And if we could just accept that, like really accept the idea that like it's here for us, there's no lack of supply, right? Like it's coming to us, then we actually would be getting the results and the outcomes that we want a lot quicker. But of course, what we do is we are like hyper focused on the results and whether we are seeing them quickly enough or not. And of course, if we're not seeing them quickly enough, then that starts to be what we give our attention to. And so now we kind of like stop the flow of what we want with the idea it's not working. I'm doing the things, but it's not working. I'm doing the things, but it's not happening quick enough. And so actually that's the real reason that when we take the break, right? Like when we take the break, it's not even so much the rest or the taking of the break that's caused the shift in the results. It's you've just dropped the resistant thought. You've also taken a break from that thought. So now you've allowed the good that you want to come to you.
Yes. And it reminds me of a saying that I've heard in a number of trainings for my network marketing business, which is don't should on yourself. I should be here. I should have this. We should do that. Why didn't this happen? So this is kind of the deeper understanding of that, I suppose. And this happens in lots of different areas of life, right? What are some other examples besides business?
Yeah, gosh, I suspect not suspect, it's every area of our lives, right? But it's kind of, I think, a one that I can see where it shows up for people a lot will be, and again, this fits, I guess, with this particular podcast of yours, right? With health and well-being, where classic example, isn't it? Either you're going to the gym or you're on a diet, but again, not seeing the results quick enough. It's really about tuning into like, what's the internal dialogue? Because again, you can be doing the things, going to the gym, doing the workouts, but if what you're telling yourself is, oh, this is not good. I've been doing this for 2 weeks now and I don't see any difference. In fact, I get on the scales and maybe you've even put on a pound or so, right? And it's that sort of, I think when we become so micro focused on the outcome all the time, that's then what is kind of feeding into the thoughts that are running in the background. It could even be, I mean, again, think about it in terms of relationships, right? I can imagine if you were someone that you're looking for your, your dream partner, maybe you're on dating apps, this kind of thing, but the thought that you're holding, right? Like the idea that you were giving your attention to all the time is, oh, I'm never going to find anyone, right? Or who's going to be interested in me, or, that kind of thing. If these are the ideas that are behind the actions that we're taking, it doesn't matter whether in theory we're doing the right things. It's always what we are giving our dominant attention to, the energy that's flowing to and through us as we take the actions. So yeah, right. For sure, would show up in all areas.
And it's so interesting. And I've just kind of vaguely alluded to what we've been talking about recently for me, but the goal that I set for myself that I did achieve was a silly little thing at work that I wanted to be able to do. And I decided I wanted to be able to do it. And then I just continued doing my work as usual. And then I did it. And then I did it like extra. But I do recognize that I was thinking about it with a lightness is the word that comes to mind. I wasn't obsessing. I wasn't worrying. I just said, oh, this is what I want. Let's see.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe what you're saying.
And fun, right? I mean, and I remember now the example that you're talking about, and that was so much fun, actually, and I remember even you telling me that story, and it was kind of, just playful. And I think that's the key. Like I'll do it, especially with my daughter, actually. And many of your listeners might be familiar with this kind of example for themselves too. But the idea of we'll manifest a parking space, right? Like you drive into the full car park. But again, I'll always do that with my daughter. It's kind of, right, shall we just go for one right at the front? Yep, absolutely. And it's just a game. It's playful.
I love that.
Behold, right?
You know what? Yeah. There's a challenge actually for the listeners is to try this parking space thing. Yes. Because when I remember to do it, it actually really is fun and it works. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's the key as well, right? Like how can we have more fun with this? And you nailed it with that word, right? The lightness. How can we keep it light? Yeah. That's the key. And so in fact, you want to take that as a cue when something is feeling heavy, when you're feeling the frustration, that's your clue right there in terms of like, okay, where am I putting resistance in the way? And just check in. What am I giving my dominant attention to? If it helps that kind of little saying that I shared earlier, that we don't so much get what we want, we get how we feel about what we want. So if we're feeling like it's hard, if we're feeling like it's frustrated, it's really giving you the clue as to like, okay, what are the dominant thoughts here?
I agree. And I mean, I've seen evidence of it. So of course I agree. But let me ask you this, because I feel like a lot of people will want to ask this.
Yeah.
We live in an online social media world. For me, it's having a landing page for this podcast, having a cool link in bio for my business Instagram, and having a resources website for my social selling team. Just having a place to put information, links, recommendations, and even celebration. I was thrilled when I found Boss Lady Bio. You can create a website that looks gorgeous and you don't have to know how to code. Have a look at what they offer at omgteachme.onamission.bio. You can even try it for free.
With all this being true, then do you have suggestions on how we figure out how to put our goal into a timeline? Or, at what point, if we say, I want to achieve X by the end of the year, we don't want that to create negativity and resistance, but we want it to be something concrete when we make a goal, right? So what are your thoughts on how to do that?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying here. And it's trying to get that like sweet spot, isn't it, between okay, like here's this goal, this idea that I've really fallen in love with. And again, I really would love it in the next 6 months, 12 months, whatever it is. And in fact, a lot of the time, that's the kind of time scale I'm working with clients on. And so you're right, we want to have that firm idea in our mind of what it is that we want. But then, yes, the sweet spot is that we don't want to be putting too much force into that, because force always negates, right? And that's very much what we keep coming back to here when we're holding it too tightly. I think, when you were saying about this lightness, the opposite of that is we want it so much, right? Like it means so much. It's like we're keeping a very tight grip on it, if that makes sense. And so actually what we're aiming for with it is this sweet spot between, yes, of course, you really want it, of course, but how do we keep that lighter energy with it? And I guess this is this idea of, we talk about it as the idea of detachment, I guess, like not being too attached to it, like not too attached to the outcome, which again, as you're saying, that for sure is a fine line to walk at times, because if you really, really want something, by definition, you want the outcome. But yet we know if we get too attached to it, we're going to get in our own way with it, etc., etc. To me, there are a few things that we can do to kind of really help with this. I think one of them is to not have it be only about the outcome, right? So like, yes, you want your goal, and yes, you want the outcome, right? And be clear and be definite around 6 months, 3 months, whatever your timeline is, right? This isn't about you keeping it so light that you let yourself off the hook altogether and you're not kind of stretching yourself. But how can you make it be so that it's not all about the outcome, right? Like, and again, this might sound a bit corny and cliche. I'm sure many of you will have heard this
not
before,
to me,
right? But we genuinely, like, how can we fall in love with the process of it? How can we fall in love with the idea of who we become along the way, really and truly? And I think that's the key. That's definitely the key for me. I'm sure for you as well, right? Like, it's that if I can, regardless of whether I achieve this goal by the deadline I've set myself. And again, one of the things that my mentor, right, Bob Proctor, used to drill into us was, you're guessing at the timeline. It's a guess. It's your best guess, right? So like, yes, you can put a 3-month deadline on it, a 6-month, whatever it is for you, and hold yourself to that, right? Like, give it your best shot, but give it your best shot with, like, again, a light, playful energy. It's just, and it's playing around with that, getting the balance right, but don't make it be all about that outcome, right? Like, how can you fall in love with who you are becoming along the way? Because the truth is, anyway, the real purpose of a goal for all of us is really about the growth. It's about who we become rather than necessarily getting the goal itself. So, I mean, in some of the examples that we've used, even like going to the gym, right? You might not see the outcome that you want straight away, but how proud do you get to feel about yourself for just disciplining yourself, showing up for your health and well-being? You're going to feel better for that regardless, just by who you are being, literally. And celebrate that and look for the evidence, right? Like, look for the evidence along the way of where things are working as well. Like, to me, it's like the more we can do that, the less we're getting so micro-focused all the time on the one particular outcome. And it's either a case of, well, if it's happened, then great, and I'm on track. And if it hasn't, right, this isn't working. And now we're starting to think those thoughts again. So how can we look for all the maybe the smaller things that are nevertheless progress, so that we can actually then believe the thoughts, oh, this is working. Do you see what I mean? Like, this is working. I'm making progress. This is good. This is inevitable. Right? I think that would really help too, for sure.
And maybe it's also sometimes about, as you say, thinking about who we're becoming, maybe taking just a quick look back and thinking about how far we've come. Because I know you've talked about before how much you going into a career about coaching and transformation changed you. And I know all of this learning has changed me. So maybe it's just having that quick look to say, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, because oftentimes we are not doing that. I mean, you're so right there. We're often so focused on, again, the goal. And then even when we get there, the next goal, that do we really take the time to genuinely look back, see how far we've come, and genuinely feel proud of where we are right now too. I think another thing just along these lines that really might help people too is, if if you think about why any of us want the things that we want, right? Like why we want the goals or whatever it is that we've fallen in love with for ourselves, typically we want something because of how we believe we will feel once we have it, once we've achieved it, once we've got to a certain level, right? Like it's always attached to feelings. Do you see how like there's a common thread? It's always the emotional side of ourselves. Okay. So another thing that you can do is spend a minute and get clear on, well, okay, why is it that I want this thing? How do I think I'm going to feel? What's it going to allow me to feel once I've achieved it? And again, is it that you're going to feel more successful? You're going to feel more secure, right? Like if a lot of people, if they've got money goals, well, I'll feel more secure if I'm earning that level of income, you know, et cetera, et cetera. What is it? What are some of the feelings that you believe you will have when you've achieved the goal? And then genuinely force yourself right now to reflect on, and why can I feel these things about myself today, right now, anyway, right? And like really look at that. You see, so then you're not so dependent on like, I need this outcome to feel this way about myself, right? Like your self-image doesn't then now become dependent on the outcome. And so you're allowing a bit more lightness back into it. We want to get another good example. I'll finish with this one, otherwise I'll talk about this for ages. But another good example on this one that I like to kind of just reflect on is, imagine you were hosting, I don't know, like a barbecue or something, right? And maybe you've got like 10, 15 people coming, and maybe the day before you're due to have it, you're out in your garden and you're chatting with your neighbor, and it's like, oh, hey, we've got some people coming around, you know, come join us if you're free, right? Like you're inviting them to this barbecue, and you're doing that with a lightness of, come join us if you're free, right? But like, so you love the idea of them coming. Yeah, it'll be great if you come, but if they don't come, it's also still going to be great, right? Like you've still got people coming, you're still going to have a great evening. That's a little bit of the energy that we want to have with our goal, right? Of course, it's going to be amazing to have it, right? Like, of course, it's going to make my life, my business, whatever it is, even better. Of course, this is why I want it. But you don't want it such that if it doesn't happen on this particular time scale, now how I am right now isn't good enough. You know, you want to be good with both. It's good if I have it, but it's also, my life is also great right now anyway. You see? So it's this kind of balance of the two, if that makes sense.
Yes, I love that. And one of the questions I was going to ask you was, okay, what are some to-do items for people? And I think you've said that is to think about how we want to feel and to feel that now in some way as best we can. And then I love the barbecue example. Actually, it's so concrete for me. Right. So to do and ask and act with that lightness of, it's going to be okay either way. I love that.
Yeah. And I think also with all of this, I think we do need to be like, give ourselves a bit of grace, because especially when we do want something, right? When we really, really do want something, this is part of the process, right? We have burning desires for things, and that's a good thing. And so there is an element of feeling our way through this. And there's going to be little phases that we'll go through where, of course, our thoughts will be getting in the way and we'll be putting resistance in the way. But it's just, how can we lessen that? How can we become aware of it and, you know, divert our attention elsewhere?
Well, and one of the things that I have really learned, and I'm still learning from you, is that I, as an analytical thinker, always, if you said to me, well, you may have resistance there, then I was on a quest to figure out what the resistance was. Why was there resistance? What's the resistance? Oh my goodness. And then you helped me learn that recognizing that is great, but I don't need to go down the rabbit hole trying to figure out what all my problems and issues are, because then, as you said at the beginning, that's what I'm giving my focus to. So that's an important one.
So true. Yeah, absolutely. We do. And I think this is, and I see, again, it's logical, isn't it? But we think, oh, if I can just find that one belief, that one thought that's getting in my way. And the truth is, it's never just one thought, one belief anyway, is it? And absolutely, even just kind of like believing into that, it's perpetuating it, isn't it? It's literally, we're giving life to it. It's much more about how can I actually just be open to the good that I want coming to me more, you know, like really just understanding that. And I think, without going off track too much, I think some of that, the degree to which people can do that and the ease with which they can do it, brings us into the whole sort of area of faith, right? Like having faith, being able to hold an idea within ourselves, even when we can't see the evidence of it yet in our external world. And of course, that's where it does. It requires us to have faith. That's really what faith is, having that faith that all the time we are moving ideas into form to and through us. That's really what we're doing and how we're creating our reality anyway. And if we can understand that there will always be a delay as we are starting to be out there doing the things, right? Doing the things that we know are going to give us the results, whilst at the same time holding the idea that, of course, this is working. Of course, people are looking for whatever it is I'm offering, etc., rather than I can hold that idea for a week or two, but if I'm not seeing the evidence that I want to see yet, right now I don't believe it. Now I'm doubting on myself. Now I'm giving attention to the idea it's not working, right? And it's this dynamic. And this is where the more you have an understanding and the stronger your faith is in how we are creating our reality, right? So again, the ideas that we're moving into form to and through us, I think the easier it is to not go putting the resistant thoughts in the way, right? Like you don't necessarily need the evidence to show you it all the time. You can just hold the idea and trust that it's working.
I'm so glad you said that. It's kind of a great way for us to wrap up too, because I know we could talk about this all day, but I'm so glad you said that, because that is not how I used to think of faith. I used to think of faith as being about religion, and that was it. And I love this way of using faith as a concept, because I don't know that I ever understood before that if I want to achieve something, I need to hold on to the belief that I can achieve it. And that's exactly what faith is.
Absolutely. And it's reminding ourselves, like one of the things I often say, you'll have heard me say it a lot, Cheryl, I'm sure, but this idea that faith and fear both require us to believe in something we can't see. And right, when we're not seeing the results that we want to see as quickly as we'd like to see them, because really that's what it also amounts to, isn't it? It's like, hang on, it's not happening on my time scale here, right? I can hold the faith for a couple of weeks, but now I'm not seeing the evidence. And it's just reminding ourselves of that, right? Kind of, well, what if it is working? There was a great saying, you'll know this one from Price Pritchard, a favorite book of both yours and mine, U Squared. And he talks about how absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, right?
Yes.
And it's just, I know that's the one you might need to play it back if you're listening, like, hang on, what was that? And go re-listen. But it's a really great reminder. And these are good thoughts to kind of have ready when we would naturally start to be thinking, oh, it's not good, it's not working, I'm doing all the things, right? If you can remind yourself, but what if it is working, actually? Just because I can't see the evidence yet doesn't mean it's not working. I've got to hold the idea for a while yet. There's a delay between the thoughts that I think and the actions I take before my outer world starts to show that reality to me, right?
Yes. But what if it is working? I love that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes.
And I actually will add that book. I'm starting, listeners, to make a list of books that we mention on episodes. You'll be able to see it on my website, which is onamission.bio/OMG Teach Me. So find that book list. I'll add this one that Karen just mentioned. And I also, just to wrap up, I have decided that I always want to ask my guests about their favorite song to listen to when they need to raise their mood, improve their vibration. And I'm going to make a playlist of these that I'll share on my website as well. But Karen, I already know what it is, but tell us what you like as your song.
I love this question. And it's one I came across literally just in the last month, but I'm loving it. And it's the perfect one to raise our vibration. So yeah, can you find Cellular Upgrade. Cellular Upgrade is what it's called. Yes.
Cellular Upgrade, which I had never heard of before, but it's lovely, I must say.
So good, right? Yeah.
And so I will put it on a Spotify playlist and share it on my website, because it's going to be a great little list, because one of my previous guests said Castle on the Hill by Ed Sheeran, which is a fun song. My song is Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys. So it'll be a whole variety of items on there.
Yeah.
But yes, go and look for Cellular Upgrade, because that is a nice one.
It sounds kind of a bit of a random one, but actually when you listen to the words, and very much for the question that you asked, like, what do you listen to when you're wanting to like raise your vibration? It's literally a piece of music that's been put together with that in mind. So yeah, it's a good listen for that for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I got a lot out of this, and I know the listeners will have as well. And maybe we'll have to bring you back again to talk more, because I know we could keep going, but that will wrap it up for today. Awesome.
I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, and leave a review. Let's get this message out further into the world. Make sure you've subscribed as well, and why not grab a screenshot and share it on your social media. Now it's time to head down to the show notes and see the resources I mentioned. Go find what you love.